Welcome to the Winged Wheel Podcast, the number one source for news, analysis, and discussion on the Detroit Red Wings, the NHL, and all things hockey. Here are your hosts, Ryan Hanna, Brad Crisco, and Evan Lopsinger.
How are you guys feeling with your swapped sides here?
To be determined.
Yeah. You don't mind having the tray next to you for the drink?
That is certainly better.
Brad,
But I totally had already gotten used to my new position.
we'll see. Now it's a little bit of A/B testing because before it was Evan on my left and Brad on my right for those who aren't watching on YouTube. And now they've swapped for this episode. So everyone who wanted it, swap back. Here you go. But for you two, this is your opportunity to see what you actually like better. And then, we'll pick one and we'll settle on it. Although Evan did already lay down on the couch. And I think he's seen the opportunity for maybe we do an overtime and you're just fully prone. Clothed, I should.
Patreon exclusive is gets a different taste of that, but there's possibilities.
Yeah, I told you to have an open mind. You've already started to spread, Brad. Unfortunately,
A little bit. I've also smashed my knee off the table twice. So.
Okay, but that's Evan who moved that table extremely close. I have no idea why he did that.
I needed it for my coffee. If we're going to be recording this early in the morning, the coffee had to be close by.
We are recording this early in the morning to facilitate you going out there and being rained on while you shoot an 82 again.
That's right. Yeah.
Folks, welcome to the Winged Wheel Podcast. Here to talk to you about all things Detroit Red Wings hockey, the world of the NHL, and lots more in the correct order. Seating. I'm one of your hosts, Ryan Hanna.
I'm Brad Crisco.
And I'm Evan.
Brad's son is so disgruntled there. You really don't like that chair.
No, I do not.
We are going to swap that eventually. That was very much all right. We have that chair in the house. Let's just see if we like it for the studio. Okay, that's a no. We'll look for a different chair. Got it. On this episode of the Winged Wheel Podcast, it is very much the end of May, nearly into June. It's off season for all but 4 teams, almost all but 2 teams. The content it needs to be searched for a little bit. But today we're going to be talking to you about trade possibilities. A name has come up once again that we've talked about before on the show, JJ Peterka. We're going to be talking about him and other trade targets for the Red Wings, what would make most sense in terms of moving assets, and more on the Red Wings before we jump into the worlds of the Stanley Cup Playoffs, a little bit of a wrap-up on international hockey, our prospect profile for this episode, which will be familiar to fans of Michigan hockey in general, and I'll leave it at that for now before we get into overtime. Before all that, this show is primarily supported by our Patreon supporters, patreon.com/wingedwheelpodcast if you want to support the show. You get access to benefits like our bonus overtime episodes, which record after the main ones. We let loose, we have fun, we get thoughts with Evan. Whether or not he is prone on the couch or sitting up for you remains to be determined. You get bloopers, outtakes, it's a good time. You also get access to our Patreon exclusive Discord, a phenomenal community, and you're automatically entered into all of our giveaways. We give away 2 tickets to every Detroit Red Wings home game in season, going directly to our Patreon supporters, for example. And in the off season, we have a lot of fun stuff planned. So much more goes into it. But again, patreon.com/wingedwheelpodcast. JJ Peterka. It's a name we've been talking about since he was a draft prospect. That's a name that it's not just Red Wings fans, but Red Wings fans were really, I think, by and large, kind of disappointed to not see selected to the Red Wings. It's a name that has been important to the Buffalo Sabres, and now potentially there's more swirling underneath the surface in terms of JJ Peterka and the Buffalo Sabres maybe not being a long-term marriage. What would you give up for JJ?
A healthy amount. 23-year who's coming off 68 points and 3 things that do not come up available in trade all that often. In today's NHL, I think at 23, there's not a ton more room to grow, but there's probably still a little bit. So it's reasonable to think he could potentially hit point per game one day. Hovering around 70 will probably be his normal. You're going to have to give up multiple premium pieces to do it. Call it maybe Danielson or a first-round pick for sure. And then probably add on something to that. I'm not saying you send those 2 both together, although you might have to. And I think if you're the Red Wings, you have to very seriously consider it. Just because, I don't think Danielson's ceiling's that much behind what Peterka is right now, but you get the certainty with Peterka. Seider gets a fellow German friend in the room, and he's young enough that he would mesh right in with that aged core that we're talking about that the Red Wings should be building around. There's no good reason not to pursue this trade unless, because you're in division, Buffalo's premium ask of Detroit is just so insane you can't do it.
Left shot forward and doesn't play a small game by any means, isn't a tiny forward by any means. There is something to be said. Brad mentioned he's also from Germany, and it means something to the international players, especially those of origin that like there's not a lot of players in the league from that country. For example, Swedes will always usually find other Swedes, especially in Detroit, but the Germans, the Austrians, Russians, more often now than before, like that kind of camaraderie is important in a room, and especially you want to bolster your best players with that. Oftentimes it's just with a depth player that, like, you know, your top players are Russian and you get him a fourth line friend who isn't going to see a ton of ice time, but his benefit in the room is almost as good, if not better, than the benefit on the ice. But Peterka would be an exception. 70-point forward. I disagree with Brad on ceiling of players at 23 years old. I think athletic skill-wise, yeah, like he's probably pretty close to his physical athletic prime, but we know there's a difference between athletic prime and performing prime in terms of the NHL and output. As his game matures, as he plays with better players, not that Buffalo was devoid of talent, but doesn't have exactly top talent. I think he could be well above 70 points. I see your point though. Like, you already have the projection of who the player is likely to be in terms of what his offensive capabilities are. And where I do agree with Brad is, don't get it twisted. This guy isn't some castaway. If he does get traded, he will cost more than one premium piece unless Buffalo is stupid.
We also need to factor in the fact that every person who leaves Buffalo becomes their true superstar.
Yeah.
So I think 70 points is the absolute floor. Like, the Red Wings could be looking at a bona fide superstar. Well, and any team other than Buffalo is looking at a bona fide superstar if they can get him out of Buffalo.
Non-Buffalo Sabres or former Buffalo Sabres all win cups, so you're essentially paying for a Stanley Cup.
It seems cheap when you think about it like that, but yeah, obviously the Red Wings should be all over this. I'm sure every team is all over this if the rumors of him wanting out of Buffalo are true. So, you talk about what the cost would be to get JJ Peterka. The demand will be astronomical, so I think the cost goes up even higher there. Now, could there be a potential situation where he wants to control his destiny a little bit, and players have more leverage now than ever? Maybe Mo Seider can do some espionage and sway his notion of which team he wants to go to. But yeah, obviously, if you're the Detroit Red Wings or a fan of the Detroit Red Wings, you should be super interested in bringing JJ Peterka to Detroit.
Now let's name the obvious thing here. If they're trading Peterka, what's going to be the ask, and it was part of the ask for the Cousins deal that never came about. It's Marco Kasper. And you arguably have just as much, if not even a bit more of a leg to stand on if you're the Buffalo Sabres asking for Marco Kasper. And I don't pretend to know what Steve Yzerman's, limit is for trading his non-tradable guys, because Buffalo has, Peterka, they have Byram, they have Alex Tuch, like they have quite a few pieces that Detroit could exactly use those kinds of players. But Kasper's probably as close to a non-tradable piece that isn't named Seider or Raymond that exists on the Red Wings in terms of what they think he could be, how he contributes to this team, the kind of game he plays. Everyone wants to be the Florida Panthers. Marco Kasper would fit in great on the Florida Panthers. Is that even an option in this trade for you?
It's an option, but not one I like, because this comes into that debate of cost versus projection versus certainty, because I think there's a reality where Marco Kasper's ceiling is what JJ Peterka already is. I like Kasper's 200-foot game a little bit better, but the point totals, the role, everything are probably going to be very similar. But you still got Kasper on the cheap. Peterka's due a contract this summer. So that factors in because there's value in that. So for me, I think it's a non-starter just because if you think Kasper can be Peterka and it's likely that he's going to be Peterka, there's no point getting older with that trade. And I know Peterka's only 23, but it's still older because Kasper's super young.
You're losing ELC years.
Exactly. So I would understand 1,000%, 1,000,000% why Buffalo would ask for that. And if I was Buffalo, that absolutely would be my ask. But it just feels a little bit redundant if Detroit's making that trade. And again, they're not identical players, but there's enough similarities there that it would feel a touch redundant to me.
I want to say never for Kasper because I think he plays the kind of game that Detroit desperately needs. And we went on and on and on last year about how, whether it was in a scrum where they were failing the puck test or just in terms of the style of game that they played, they needed the kind of sandpaper and effective sandpaper, not like dud Ryan Reeves contribute nothing to the hockey side of things type. But Marco Kasper sandpaper, we need that on this team. The Detroit Red Wings desperately need that. So to trade that away would be a mistake. And again, don't take Peterka as a small, like this isn't, with no disrespect, this isn't Berggren, right? Like he brings a physical element to the game. Like he plays, I think, a strong game overall. It's a well-rounded game, but Kasper is at the top of a lot of people's envy list for a reason. So to do at best a lateral move on that front seems uncomfortable. But when you're trading for top players in the trade market, the price is often uncomfortable. It's very rare where you get a full-on fleece, and you don't want to disillusion yourself into thinking that you're going to get this guy for free, because then as a fan, you'll be disappointed. But if you're taking Kasper off the board, Danielson, Sandin Pellikka, MBN, those are all names, and maybe whoever they draft at 13th, those are all names that are going to be in play here. Maybe the 13th pick. We should name here. Like, this is a player who's going to be productive. Yes, you have to pay him a contract. It's probably going to be north of $6 million, could be up to $8 million, depending on the term. You're going to have to pony up a good amount before you even have the opportunity to pay him those numbers still.
I think there's two sides of the coin on this. It's especially when it relates to Marco Kasper. It's this season, he sort of checked every box and has, I would say, exceeded everyone's expectations in every aspect. So do you keep him and say, hey, we're finding untapped potential, let's see where this rides out? Or do you sell high? Well, what you perceive to be the high. Are you saying this is probably the most Marco Kasper will ever be? Do you sell while the iron's hot and you go out and get a guy like JJ Peterka, who you think this will be his floor, a 70-point floor on a guy? Personally, I think Marco Kasper would be on my untouchable list just because I've liked everything he brought this season. I really didn't think it was going to go this way at all. He had an incredible year, and the fit is there. There's no guarantee that JJ Peterka is going to walk into the LCA and fit in with the locker room and understand the style of the game, or that him and Todd McLellan are going to get along. Like, there's a lot of certainty in Marco Kasper right now as well.
That's a good point too about, the McLellan system and everything. And if Peterka's not, the story in Buffalo, I should say, is that these players want out because they're not really happy with Buffalo's development. And if it wasn't Buffalo, you'd almost be concerned to say, why do these guys want out? It's not really terribly common for it to happen this way, but Buffalo is Buffalo, and they've been stuck there forever. It's pretty much it's Toronto without the winning. Like, it's perpetual sadness without even the 82 games of false hope. So that's how you understand why he wants out. It's funny that you talked about selling high and maybe capitalize on that, Evan. And I know you were not necessarily talking about Buffalo there, but how many times have they watched a guy who they sold on and sold high on, they thought, go off and have a ton of success elsewhere. And that does factor into things. Like when the Cousins trade that didn't end up happening in Detroit was, in the works, a lot of what I heard was Buffalo is nervous to make these deals. They are very apprehensive to move out their key pieces, whether or not they have to trade the guys, because they don't want a repeat of the Eichel situation. They don't want a repeat of the Reinhart situation. They're very cognizant of the fact that these guys all win cups when they leave the Buffalo Sabres.
Don't forget Ryan O'Reilly.
Yeah, like the list goes on and on and on.
And it's such an cruel point to make, but it's probably worth making. They kept Kevin Adams around, and he's not a good GM. I'd be shocked if he's the Sabres GM in 2 years. So
I don't get that.
You got to jump in. We've joked about it for the entire 10 years of this podcast. One of the running jokes is how to be a good GM in the NHL. You call the bad ones a lot. He's still employed. Good for him. You don't like seeing people lose their jobs. He's still collecting a paycheck. Okay, capitalize while he's there. And yeah, and the one thing we didn't bring up when we were talking about it, and you touched on it a bit, about how much leverage does Peterka have in this trade? Because he doesn't have any trade protection. They can trade him anywhere, but he's a restricted free agent, which means he can choose where he signs a contract. They can trade him to San Jose, and he goes, I'm signing a 1-year deal. I have no interest in signing here long-term. Whereas if he gives them a list of 5 teams, I will sign long-term here. Those teams will pony up more because they know they're getting him for a long time. So he does have a little bit of control here in terms of where he lands. And that's where, not even to make the memes out of the German stuff, but where Mo Seider could actually be a recruiter, where if they are, we don't know if they're buddies, but like if they are, there's good incentive for Mo to give him a call and be like, hey, like we got a good thing that's about to happen here. You should want to come here. And then they can figure out a contract. Because I saw the Evolving Hockey and the other contract projections for Peterka. Those both seem cheap, like no-brainers. So I wouldn't be balking at whatever he's asking in all likelihood.
I think they're a touch low, honestly.
Yeah, I do as well, especially for the age. And then, again, Buffalo's going to be asking the world. So if Kasper's untouchable, you're either probably starting with 13th overall or Nate Danielson and adding to that, which I would do on either front personally. And then the question is, how much do you have to add? Buffalo is in the same position as Detroit. They have no interest in going backwards. And if you're trading Peterka, there's not really a reality where you're not going at least a little bit backwards. But again, it comes down to, do they want futures? Do they want roster players? Do they want both? Would they have more interest in 13th overall? Or would they have more interest in Danielson because he's a little further along? Do you have to throw in a Rasmussen because he can help their bottom 6 tomorrow? Like, it's one of those weird ones again where I don't know exactly what they'd be fishing for. But again,
how bad is their bottom 6 if Michael Rasmussen is helping it?
They traded their top prospect for Ryan McLeod last summer, so it must have been atrocious.
Yeah, that's not good.
So I could see them genuinely having interest in Michael Rasmussen, and my feelings on that subject are well known, so I'd be fine with it. But yeah, it would be like, not that it's likely to happen in division, but if the Red Wings were to trade for Peterka, like, fans need to be braced for the sticker shock on that acquisition cost. Like, it would be substantial.
It's a big boy trade.
Yeah.
That's a big boy trade.
Between, Peterka, we talked about trading for Byram last episode. We've mentioned it lightly, but I think Alex Tuch is a guy who's coming up in terms of potential trade targets more.
All next three first-round picks. Let's get weird.
Let's take it. I would love any one of those guys. Like, Buffalo, they're very similar to Detroit in terms of you have a lot of good key players in your lineup, and why are all of them wanting out? Not that Alex Tuch is asking to leave, but at some point, if you're Buffalo, you're like, okay, what is the best use of this asset? Do we keep him or do we trade him while his value is still extremely high? Alex Tuch is a guy with a capital G that Detroit could also use. We could do a whole episode on Buffalo Sabres trade targets, some other trade targets, and I should credit Harman Dial here because they wrote a great piece on RFA trade targets. So I'll link the article in the episode description. But one that I thought about, more than a few times now on and off is Noah Dobson with the Islanders. And he's a polarizing guy in terms of perceptions of him. He is a year removed from a 70-point season. And then the season after that, he had 39 points, 8 fewer games, 71 games as opposed to 79. But 70 points to 39 points. Right shot defenseman, do a big contract. And like people are talking, 10 million plus with term. Are the Islanders enamored by him?
How many $10 million defensemen are the Red Wings going to have? All of them?
5 is the number we're going for. 8. We'll go 8 million.
You missed your calling. Why are you podcasting?
Well, then I would have to play. I'm more of a 7th defenseman guy, or as a triple buyout club. That's really what I'm looking for.
That's a true triple goals.
No, he screwed himself over when he was 2 years old because he shoots left. He had no chance.
Oh, Evan? Oh, yeah. That's why I was a righty and I was just, small and
we're
bad.
sitting in the same room together.
Yeah, he's right. Shit. Now, no, you know what? It's not that we're sitting in the same room together. We failed. We're sitting in a room with Brad twice a week.
That's true, yeah.
I got to find a way to flip this. It's just been on you for so long. And I think it's whoever's on the couch with me gets my ridicule. So I have to find a way to flip my ridicule on Evan.
So your race is your anger side?
Yeah. That's that side started balding first. That's why.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Anyways, with Dobson, I think this is much like Kasper Peterka, a projection versus certainty versus cost issue. Because if the Islanders are trading a offensive right-handed defenseman, you know what they're asking for from Detroit. They want to replace that. It would be almost certainly Sandin Pellikka as part of the package. Again, if I'm the Islanders, that's what I'm doing. Not for sure, but you got to think they would be looking to replace that in the pipeline. I really like Noah Dobson, but that substantial of a drop year over year immediately prevents me from giving him that contract because the uncertainty of it all is huge. Not that I'm saying absolutely no chance, but the one part of that where I counter myself was that Patrick Waugh, right? Dobson's drop-off started shortly after Waugh got there. Is it just a stylistic, I don't know what, head-to-head confrontation? They don't vibe with each other and how Waugh wants him to play versus how he wants to play. Given that the Red Wings already have Seider, given that the Red Wings have Sandin Pellikka coming and all the value you get with an entry-level contract, et cetera, I'm a little less hot to trot on Dobson, even though I love the player. Just because 10 million, even 9 million for Dobson at this point, while a reasonable ask on the player's side, just too many questions there for me to A, give him that contract, and then B, give up the absolute insane return. Because he would get a bigger return than Peterka, probably substantially. I don't know if I'm there on him at this point in time. I could easily sit here and say, okay, well, in a year, let's see what he does this year. Okay, that will put my mind at ease, but then the price goes up even more, which serves no purpose. So you'd kind of have to make the gamble now, which I just don't think I'm.
How many guys, how many teams have 1 to 2 defensemen who play on the power play?
And that's going down year over year.
There's some teams that play with 5 forwards on the power play.
Yeah.
So I think philosophically, this isn't even a Noah Dobson thing. I think philosophically for me, you've got your horses on the back end. You've got Seider, you've got Edvinsson. Axel Sandin Pellikka is really your sort of wild card right now. I would almost certainly pencil him in to be at least power play 2. You don't need a Noah Dobson, because I think you're just adding more of the same. Obviously, you want to improve the blue line. That's obvious to anyone listening to this podcast. But do you need to overspend on a Noah Dobson when you could, spend half that amount of money and try and find your meat and potatoes, your lunch pail type defenseman who's just going to make you incrementally better?
I'm going to branch off that, and I'm sure you had him on his list, but this is the perfect transition for the defenseman I want to see the Red Wings target right now, because Evan's right. And right now, if you're looking at a defenseman coming off a down year who's probably looking at a reasonable contract and a lower acquisition cost, I'm all over K'Andre Miller right now.
Yeah.
Because
not that he's Dobson, but
Yeah, but
he's absolutely not Dobson. But in terms of what do the Red Wings need stylistically, a big body defenseman who can skate.
Yeah, but what do the Rangers think of him? Because if they think extremely highly, we're having the same sort of conversation.
But we're talking about
the
it with
Rangers think about any of their players right now.
Yeah.
Well, Chris Drury could like someone one day and hate them the next. That's you just got to make the phone call on the right day.
There's two reasons why
That's real.
There's two reasons why I think they might be inclined to move Miller. He's coming off a down year, so they might not believe in him anymore. And that's a risk when you're trading him. And two, full stop, they need cap space. They're not about to give a guy a raise who's coming off a down year when they are desperate for cap space. So he's due a contract. There could even, with how much cap space the Rangers need, you could maybe even lower the acquisition cost on him if you take Chris Kreider's contract with it, which is obviously a lot of money to absorb if you're the Red Wings, because you're adding probably $11 to $12 million to your cap sheet between those two players. That's a lot of money the Rangers need. The Red Wings could absorb it, and if it lowers the acquisition cost, they should be all over that. You eat 2 years of Chris Kreider, but if you get a K'Andre Miller out of it, amazing. And I don't even hate Chris Kreider as a short-term option in the Red Wings middle six. Again, I'm getting way too detailed on a hypothetical here. But point being, K'Andre Miller would be a fantastic reclamation project. Because again, I think his worst case scenario long-term is Ben Sherratt. Like a big body who can skate. That's, again, I have made it no secret how much I don't like Ben Sherratt's contract, but he's been a very useful defenseman for the Red Wings who's been asked to play way higher in the lineup than he should, but he hasn't been a total train wreck there.
And Ben Sherratt's contract with the cap going up is now perfectly reasonable.
For what he is. Exactly. So if you get another Ben Sherratt, and again, I'm talking as a floor with K'Andre Miller, you're happy. So if there's anything above that, which we've seen that K'Andre Miller has a 40-point season under his belt already, and he's not that old.
Yeah.
So again, Dobson versus Miller. Noah Dobson's a far, far superior player, full stop, end of statement. But with how much he's going to cost in acquisition, with what that next contract's going to be, to me, for where the Red Wings are at and where they need to allocate assets and cap space, K'Andre Miller makes a ton more sense.
And one thing I should add on Dobson that I don't think we mentioned is, we said he's a right shot. He does play both sides. I think he plays both sides of the ice. He can play left D, play right D. Which side he likes more, that's something I'm not completely familiar with, but he could flip there. I know the Red Wings aren't exactly fond of guys who do that, and it does make me a bit nervous too. But overall, Brad's thesis here is correct. To pay that much for a guy who went from 70 points to just over half that, and are you really going to pay the premium in trade and then the contract? I understand the internal cap that Detroit has with Dylan Larkin's contract. They could only hold that for so long. Max said last episode, I believe, you already did your job with that. You got in Seider, you got in Raymond. It might hold Edvinsson down below that internal cap as well, but it's not going to hold forever because the cap's just going up too much. You're really going to give Noah Dobson the first contract that's the richest on your team.
And then if he turns out to not live up to that contract, that's really bad.
So I agree. I think you can get not the full performance, but something that still adequately fills a hole and spend the premium money elsewhere. It's a weirdly rich trade market, especially in the world of RFAs. Maybe I'm off. Maybe it's always like this, and I'm just specifically attuned to it because the Red Wings are in a position to trade for 23, 24-year-olds more often now. But with Marco Rossi before, the Buffalo guys, K'Andre Miller, Noah Dobson, there are a lot of guys where you have an opportunity to get someone at the right age, so you're not paying for 31, 32, 33-year-old years, which I know drives Brad crazy, and high performers. The only thing is you have to spend the cap space, and you don't get to keep the cap space that you ended the season with. It doesn't accrue, and fans, it's not dispersed to the fans in the stands. There's no reason for you to be, if you're a team that's wanting to compete, happy of having anything less than spending to the cap, with a big asterisk there because your cap construction matters a lot. there are a lot of targets right now. There's a lot of targets, and like Evan said, a lot of these would be big boy trades, so you have to stomach the cost, but that's how teams who move off their rung of the ladder make those moves, is by making big boy moves like this.
I've been thinking about this a lot lately because as much of a pessimist as I am by nature, I've been one of the people in the Red Wing space who's saying patience is okay. Like, make the deal when you need to. This cap increase, this amount of cap space the Red Wings have, the amount of assets and picks and prospects the Red Wings have, with the volume of what's out there right now, I'm honestly a little disappointed if they don't come out of this offseason with, I'm not going to say 2 superstar level players, but like 2 pretty significant upgrades. Like, if they come away from this offseason with anything less than like a top 6 forward and a, defenseman of, let's call it Keandre Miller's talent level, like, I feel like that's a pretty big missed opportunity because again, I don't know if we're going to see this again. Just given the nature of, like, I've got this gut feeling that after this summer, teams are going to adjust to the new world of all the cap space, and then you'll see more aggressiveness. So this type of pool won't be out there because teams will be like, oh, we can just keep this guy. It's easy. We've got the cap space.
Yeah. Okay, folks, we are going to take a quick break to hear from the sponsors of the Winged Wheel podcast. More after this. When you think about fast food, you probably picture greasy burgers, sad fries, or something thought out and disappointing. But if you're tight on time, whether you're working, parenting, or digging through hockey trade rumors, it's not like you got time to whip up a healthy, balanced meal. That's why Tempo has been such a solid find. You pick your meals from a 20-plus item menu, and they all cook in just 3 minutes. Seriously, we're talking full chef-crafted meals that don't feel like microwave food. We've tried a bunch, but the tomato Asiago chicken was incredible, and the tangy Baja citrus salmon and rice somehow tasted like something you'd get at a restaurant. And it was ready before we even finished arguing about defensive pairings. Tempo is a weekly delivery service that delivers chef-crafted meals from a dietitian-approved menu fresh to your door. Each one is single-serve, balanced, and actually tastes good. No weird freezer-burned hockey puck patties here, and they're made with real ingredients, which is kind of rare when you're this busy and still trying to eat like an adult. There are options for pretty much every diet or preference, high protein, low carb, fiber rich. So whether you're tracking macros or just trying to eat something better than chips, they've got you covered. For a limited time, Tempo is offering our listeners 60% off your first box. Go to tempomeals.com/wingedwheel. That's tempomeals.com/wingedwheel for 60% off your first box. tempomeals.com/wingedwheel. Rules and restrictions may apply. The World Championships wrapped up. We actually talked about it last episode. Team USA winning their first gold in 92 years. The golden goal for Tage Thompson, who's probably secured himself a Olympic roster spot. Big FU to the team that left him off for 4 Nations. All that's well and good. Actually, before we move off Team USA, how cool was it to see Werenski go off the ice and get Johnny Gaudreau's jersey to lift the trophy with? That was awesome.
Oh yeah, how can you not be romantic about hockey?
And for people who don't know, like, Johnny Gaudreau was one of those guys that showed up for Team USA every single time the World Championships came around. It wasn't one of the guys that stayed home or said I need to rest or whatever. Like, he showed up. That was his, people say that was his tournament. And so for them to break through, it is equal parts heartbreaking that he couldn't be there, and touching that they honored the gold medal and the lifting of the trophy to Johnny Gaudreau. So that was really, really cool to see. All right, a little bit of a roundup for the Red Wings and how they did in that tournament. We've been covering it the whole time. Lucas Raymond, Simon Edvinsson, Erik Gustafsson, bronze medal winners for Sweden. Raymond, 5 goals, 6 assists, a +9 in the tournament. One of the standout of the tournament. Could have been player of the tournament if they had gone all the way. Simon Edvinsson, just the 1 assist, +2. Not a huge offensive performance from him. Erik Gustafsson, naturally, as everyone predicted, 7 assists, +3. Fun to see, and there's questions. We'll chat a little bit in a minute here about, quality of competition and can you glean anything from this, but still, it's better than seeing a quiet tournament from him. Marco Kasper, another standout, 4 goals, 3 assists, +8. Another standout, leading Austria through a lot of games there and some big performances. Again, often the player of the game for them. Mo Seider, the 1 assist for Germany. Michael Brandsegg-Nygard, 4 assists for Norway. And not often talked about, but Eduards Tralmaks, the Latvian, had a huge tournament as well. 3 goals, 4 assists, 7 points, a +1. He was, again, that's a potential depth signing in the Red Wings roster, maybe a Griffins player more likely than not, but remains to be seen. But a lot of, as was written before, I believe on the Daily Faceoff that Brad mentioned, a lot of Red Wings standouts in this tournament and some good storylines.
Yeah, and probably worth mentioning with MBN and his 4 assists that he came down mid-tournament. He didn't even play the full tournament. So, and again, he's playing for Norway. It's not like he had the support that Lucas Raymond did in Sweden. So,
yeah,
good sign for him.
Wasn't on some loser team like Canada.
Yeah,
that's right.
Bums. The one thing I did want to touch on, though, with Erik Gustafsson, I don't care that he had 7 assists, and I don't care who they came against. All I care about is that he's got to be feeling pretty good about his performance there, which means he should have, after a pretty tough season, a good offseason where he might be carrying some confidence throughout the offseason coming into training camp and preseason and the start of next season. So we've seen what can happen with guys, especially offensive players, when they're lacking confidence. So hopefully this can give him a bit of a boost and he comes in with his head held a little higher and give him a better start.
I fully agree. And especially after Todd McLellan came in, like not in a very obvious way, because he still was a, really 7th defenseman in terms of performance, but you did see Erik Gustafsson smooth out the rough edges a little bit. So he trended well. And for him to have this performance, even if it's just a confidence boost to say, hey, yeah, I'm an IHLer all day, every day. Look what I can do in this tournament with the opportunity given to me. If he can come in and just be totally fine on the third pair, that's all the Red Wings need. They just need him to not be a problem on the third pair.
It's hard, in a season to change momentum. You really do need an off season to wipe the slate clean and just start fresh. Yeah, there was a coaching change in Detroit, but you still have all maybe the stink of your season that's sitting there. Like, a coach can only do so much. And I know we saw a drastic change in Detroit when there was a coaching change, but on a player by player basis, like, you're kind of just rolling, you're just trying to grind through the season. And for a guy who's in the doghouse or not having a good season coming to a new team, like, how many times do we see guys make that transition, even elite players, and struggle? So, Erik Gustafsson gets to play for Sweden, get some reps in, get some confidence, start the next season totally with a clean slate. Hopefully he's one of the big turnaround performers for the Red Wings and going into the next year.
I don't think he's a solution at the second pair right D spot. And again, Sandin Pellikka is not a certainty, but let's pretend that he is. He's still not there, and he won't be there next season. Even if he makes the Red Wings, he's going to need time, especially a guy of his size and coming from international ice to North American ice. We've seen a little bit of struggle with that, and that's totally normal. So I'm not saying he's a second pair solution, but if he can be the third pair steadiness, it's one less headache for the Red Wings to worry about. Then that's one acquisition in the offseason, and then you have your right side, not dominant, not set for life, but just shored up. Shored up is not something that Detroit's been able to say many positions are at on this team for the last 10 plus years we've been doing this podcast. So just having that be okay, then you just start to plug holes. The boat's sinking a little slower. You can make some more forward progress, and you just need guys to fill in their slots. The Red Wings need to help that a little bit by not having to ask too much of Erik Gustafsson and putting him in favorable situations. Not that I think they were the problem last year. I think he had a bad season, but still. So, yeah, good momentum to carry. Jump to the NHL, and I'm going to start this with a question. Would you shotgun a beer in church?
Yes.
You haven't?
That Paul Maurice quote was posted, and all the responses were, worse things have happened in places of worship. It was hysterical. Paul Maurice, man, that guy is a walking soundbite. Like, even if he wasn't just an exceptionally top dude, like an all-time guy, I know we use that phrase about him every single time we talk about him, media members have to love him. Like, every time a mic's in front of him, you're getting absolute gold.
My favorite line he had was when Florida lost 3-0 to Carolina last game, and one of the reporters asked him about Bobrovsky's game, and he said his gap control in the last 2 goals were horseshit.
They were empty netters.
All-time dude. I love this, man.
Is that a sort of, sanity check on the reporters to make sure they're actually watching the game?
I think he's just like,
In case someone writes about that and he's like, I got them.
no, I think he just loves messing around.
I think he loves being funny, but also if you get a performance of your goalie where he gives up 1 goal, why the hell are you asking about that? Like, he obviously had a good game.
You know what? And for him to have the patience to make a joke out of it rather than, call someone stupid, when it's really, you have to understand when reporters are asking questions, if you think it's a dumb question, 9 times out of 10, it's not about the question, it's about getting someone to say something after, and you have to be creative to get them to talk about stuff. How many times have you looked at a hockey player and they're just interested in getting out the door? You have to essentially trick them to talking. That's what we've done with Evan, and after 10 years, he finally...
That's why I'm closer to the door today.
Yeah, it locks from the outside. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but Tully is the only one with the key, so you're going to have to learn how to speak dog. And Spanish, because he does not speak English.
We can do one of those.
Which one? You have to be a Patreon exclusive member to find out. But Paul Maurice, the Florida Panthers, they are up 3-1. The Carolina Hurricanes break a 15-game Eastern Conference final losing streak and stay alive. By the time you listen to this episode, the series may be over or continued, but still, Florida seems in control, but Carolina staves off the worst possible outcome. Rod Brindamore's previous "that wasn't a sweep" comments from years past, where it literally was a sweep, he can actually say that this year.
Yeah, it's a gentleman's sweep now.
It's crazy. It's crazy to me to think that we're potentially 5 wins away from the season being done. Stanley Cup could be awarded in 5 wins.
It almost feels like it's on time. It's May 28th.
Yeah, we might actually get the Stanley Cup not ending the same week as the draft right now.
Although, do you really think a potential Edmonton-Florida series is going to be...
No, that's going to go to 7, which is why we need Florida and Edmonton to finish this off next game. We need to get going here.
Edmonton and Dallas, that series is 3-1. Edmonton, they still don't have...
Is Edmonton good?
Yes.
I don't understand.
Yes.
Stuart Skinner melted down for 1 period. And beyond Stuart Skinner for that 1 period, Edmonton has controlled this series. Like,
without Ekholm,
yeah.
Connor Brown's out, weird goalie situation. Like,
Zach Hyman was out last game, I think, right? But
I think he dislocated his shoulder.
Oof.
That's just a game for those guys.
Oh, yeah.
Surprised he even missed a shift.
Well, that's the thing. Like, in Edmonton with a 3-1 lead,
Super
they're
dislocated.
They're not in a position where they have to rush guys back. Like that. This is the crazy part. Edmonton has made a lot of deep playoff runs over the last, call it, decade since McDavid was drafted. But that's usually because McDavid and Draisaitl have just gone mental and they've dragged the team kicking and screaming to the conference final or Stanley Cup final. That does not feel like these Edmonton Oilers. They are getting contributions from every line. Their defense is playing solid. The only question mark they have right now is Stuart Skinner putting up a .792 save percentage or a shutout, because there hasn't been a lot of in-betweens.
I think I saw a stat that Ryan Nugent-Hopkins has 9 points in 5 games in this series too. So that guy's going supernova right now.
It feels like a different Edmonton Oilers team. Oh, and by the way, McDavid and Draisaitl are still putting up points.
Did you say he's going huge or nuge?
I actually don't know.
Because one of those is really funny and we glossed over it.
I don't know. It's too early in the morning for me to have that much of my RAM dedicated to knowing what I said 6 seconds ago. The biggest story outside of the 2 points leaders in the NHL playoffs, I think they're at like 24, 23-ish points there, McDavid and Draisaitl, is Evan Bouchard elite. Because Evan Bouchard has always had all the offense in the world, does play with those offensive weapons in Edmonton, but has had questionable defense more often than I think has been reported on nationally. Edmonton Oilers fans will be very familiar. I think he might be playing his way onto like a Team Canada roster spot right now.
How do you feel about Erik Karlsson, Ryan?
Not the same.
No, he's bigger, but there are the defensive deficiencies that I think are overblown. But yeah, he's always been this guy. He's just evolving in terms of improvement. Like he's unreal.
Also, Connor McDavid, as we all saw as the season went on, he absolutely load managed himself, right?
Oh yeah, 1,000%. Because now he's actually playing hockey, and it's terrifying for everybody else in the NHL.
Well, how could you as a player go through the playoffs last year, the being down 0-3, then being back 3-3, losing in game 7, and very visibly to everyone that you're out of gas and not make adjustments? Like, that's a guy who wants to win and sacrifice everything. I 110% believe he just kind of, I'll say, load managed himself. Because I don't think saying he coasted is fair, because he's still going faster than everyone else. But he definitely understood this objective for this year.
So this is going to be an absolutely stupid take, but it feels like he still hasn't hit full gear. You know what I mean? Like, it almost...
Because he has Florida... these entire playoffs, he has had the Florida Panthers in his mind.
Exactly. I feel like he's just saving himself for the Panthers. Like, all right, we're getting back. Now I have some energy. We're going to go 1,000%. And these could be absolutely insane Stanley Cup finals, because Florida, they're pretty banged up right now. They've had a tougher path than the Oilers have, because Kings in 6, Vegas in 5. If they dispatch of Dallas in 5, I'm not saying that's an easy path to the finals, but in terms of load management, it's about as good as you can ever hope for in the Stanley Cup playoffs. And man, Florida, just with the Reinhart injury and everything else they got going on, if Edmonton's ever going to do it,
they have to hope Hyman is not out long term.
Yeah,
I think he's been a huge contributor for them, but
I think we need to talk about the other side of the fence as well. Like, I think Dallas has been pretty underwhelming in this series. Like, we talked, start of the playoffs, I would say the majority of people who are doing brackets, not that that's an indicator of anything.
I feel like
probably because I had Dallas in the finals, and that's why I'm saying it, is, Dallas was considered probably a lock for the Stanley Cup finals. Like, deep, coming on it. Well, I mean, they were terrible entering the playoffs, but their team is absolutely loaded. They bring in Rantanen, and yes, they had injuries. They need Heiskanen to come back, who's back now. But going out in 5 to the Oilers tentatively, I think would be a major disappointment for that group.
Well, obviously Hintz is injured, and Bouchard's making sure it stays that way.
That was okay.
That's funny.
The 2-hand chop on the top of the skate hurts like nothing else in life. And the fact that the internet gets mad about that stuff, I'm like, that's the playoffs, baby.
Well, isn't that Hintz's injured foot or ankle or whatever it is that kept him out of the game? If people ever wonder why the NHL does not release detailed injury reports like the NFL, it's because hockey players are assholes. And we saw it right there. They absolutely will target it.
If we're going to talk about McDavid load managing throughout the regular season to turn it on in the playoffs, like, these guys will take any slight advantage that they can have to win. And if I knew that someone on the other team had an aggravated shoulder or an aggravated ankle, like, I'm taking every opportunity to make that worse.
So for those who haven't seen it, it was Darnell Nurse, right? The first time?
I believe so, yeah.
Turned around. They're just jockeying for position in front. There's a cross check first, I believe, on Nurse from Rupe Hintz. Nurse turned around, and it was like a backhand chop on top of the skate. Everyone's saying he didn't look where he was chopping. It was completely accidental. Maybe, but it's also like Evan and Brad said, that's a move that you do a lot.
He didn't know what he was you chop higher, you're getting games. Like, you can't be chopping at the midsection and up.
Yes. He didn't know if he was getting shin, ankle, foot, but he knew he was getting something.
Yeah.
And for those who are saying Hintz was faking it, no, that hurts
so bad.
Especially depending on how you wear your skate. The tongue of the skate essentially becomes an extension of the top bones of your foot.
And if they get you with the heel of the stick, it's like taking a hammer and getting like all the energy in one spot.
And then Hintz misses a game. He takes warm up, can't play, misses a game. And the discourse was just so stupid. It was like accusing Hintz of faking it. I'm like, oh yeah, he's faking it for sure. And it was like, wanting Nurse brought up at the Hague for war crimes. I'm like, God,
There's no middle. There's no middle,
right? And then I actually tweeted something. I was like, this discourse is so stupid. And how do I immediately then see Bouchard give the love tap on Hintz's, that same foot, the first game Hintz is back, and I'm just like, oh, that's going to be reignited.
I think the beautiful thing about that play is Bouchard was going for a line change, then went away from the bench, two-handed the top of Roope Hintz's foot, and then went and changed.
That's a Brad
Went
Marchand
completely
special.
out of his way to do it.
They're ready for Florida, man.
I love that kind of stuff. Like, that's, I know it's not part of the game, but that's part of the mental warfare, the physical warfare that goes on in playoffs.
One thing I'll say, and I know we're writing off Dallas here, that's a team that's still good enough to make a comeback from 3-1. Like, they're not out. And they've actually, I think at points in not the most recent Oilers win last night, but the one before that, I think they controlled the majority of that game. Like, I have not looked at the, win-o-meter or deserve to win-o-meter, which it's not religious, but just to get a sense of who had more opportunities, that kind of thing. I guarantee that was in Dallas's favor. So, like, you rattle Skinner, which you can do. Maybe Edmonton's off kilter because Heinen's out, whatever. Like, they have enough talent there. And Rantanen, for as much as he took control before, I don't think any Dallas Stars player has been truly exceptional through and through 4 games. Obviously, they're down 3-1, but it's not over. And that's a team who I have more faith in than obviously the Carolina Hurricanes in my mind.
Yeah, I would be more shocked if they lost the next game than if they came back and won this series.
All right, that's enough on the NHL, as I'm sure things have changed since you've listened. Let's jump into our next prospect profile here.
Actually, sorry, I'm going to stop you before you get it because I looked it up. The deserve to win-o-meter. I've never seen this before. 50-50.
No way.
Right down the middle.
I would have guaranteed. Huh. Okay,
50-50, right on the money.
I get my money back.
You're more of an eye test guy.
Yeah, you know me. All right. The prospect profile for this episode, and we're getting a little bit away from the Red Wings range, and so you're going to see us circle back on guys quite a bit. Muskegon fans will be familiar with him. Ivan Ryabkin, switched from Russia, was it mid-season? And a popular name that comes up when we talk about, what prospect you want us to profile next and who's a lesser-known player and what's a dark horse candidate. Obviously, Lumberjacks fans will be pushing hard and had an impressive, they won the title in the USHL, but had an impressive run, especially after he flipped over. So Ivan Ryabkin, worth it at 13. What kind of player is he, or is he more of a later in the first round pick?
This is going to be such an oversimplification, which probably won't be fair to him. On talent, yeah, he's probably in the range at 13. He's good skater, wicked shot, unbelievable hands, soft touch, good hockey IQ with the puck on his stick, can make detailed passes, can make high skill plays one-on-one, just wheel around the offensive zone and make anything happen, at least at the junior level. In his draft -2 season was, I think, set or was close to setting the MHL scoring record, was outpacing Demidov and Michkov at the same age, and just the sky was the limit for the guy. Apparently there's issues about conditioning, attitude, coachability, work ethic, all reported. So if you're wondering why a guy with that talent level might slip out of the first round, yeah, every negative rumor you can have around a prospect this age has been floated with him. I have no idea if it's true, but I'm not saying it's true. I'm just saying that's what I heard. And it's out there quite a lot. And, obviously when you jump to Russia to the USHL midseason, it's probably an indicator that it's at least a little bit true. So does this strike me as the type of player Steve Yzerman will draft? Absolutely not. This seems like everything Steve Yzerman tries to avoid, but the talent is undeniable.
Yeah, like Brad said, he outpaced and outscored Michkov in his 16-year-old year in the MHL, which is going to turn a lot of heads. And I think it got him on the radar. I think it, probably at that point made him a lottery-level player for this draft. But given all those negatives, his skating needs serious improvement. His consistency needs serious improvement. His defensive game needs serious improvement, and then you lump on and you lump on and you lump on. He's an extremely high risk, high reward type pick. And I think at 13, that's not the guy I'm taking. But when you watch him play and you watch some of the things he's able to do with the puck, you see a superstar. It is undeniable that the talent is all worldly. Like if he was a bike, or if he had two wheels, he'd be a bike. But like if he could, iron these things out and really, take this to the next level and take his conditioning seriously, this would be a no doubter. I don't even think he would be at 13 if he could do those things. But that's, part of being a prospect, playing through and figuring those things out. 13 makes no sense for me. He could very well still be available middle of the second round, depending on how interviews go and how teams really evaluate consistency and all those issues we talked about. But in a vacuum, like, this guy's got serious talent.
And I think I would even argue the skating's good. It's just he's 5'11", 200 plus pounds.
He's Ovechkin.
I think it's just a conditioning issue with his skating, because you watch his movement and his technique. It's solid. Like,
he's elusive
there.
in like man-on-man situations.
It's just he's built. I don't know if he's going for an NFL running back and just missed how that works with hockey. But yeah, I don't know. There is a reality. The Red Wings draft him, and it's because everybody keeps passing on him to the mid-second round. Like, it's well within the range of possibility, because there are so many red flags there. And yeah, if the interviews go really well, maybe that shoots him up some boards. But if the interviews go poorly, he's the ultimate wild card in this draft for sure.
You have to imagine that if a team is drafting him, they're supremely confident in what they saw. Like, you talk to the player, you talk to his coaches, you talk to your scouts over in Europe, and if you have anyone embedded in Russia, like, those are the kinds of things that you have to be absolutely 100% sure on. There have been players in the past who have had attitude issues or, consistency issues, who have ended up being drafted and have either failed, or someone's like, how did we get this much talent at pick 17, 19, 28, that kind of thing. But more often than not, in my mind, those things, if you're not completely certain, those players fail. Evan is right. These are prospects. These are human beings. And worst of all, these are kids. Like, they are teenagers who have spent more time on the ice than really focusing in the classroom. Like, these are not the most manageable kids naturally all the time. And that's why an old adage that we would probably have used to harped on, but now you have to understand why scouts and GMs talk this way. They're like, he's a good kid, good head on his shoulders, understands the way the game is supposed to be played, really coachable. Those are all things that actually make a material difference in the way a prospect develops. And how much talent. I mean, you could build a Stanley Cup contender over like 2 or 3 draft classes in terms of the amount of talent that just dies in kids' careers who can never have the right head on their shoulders to put it all together in the show. You know what I mean? Like, so with a player like Ryabkin, I'm not going to say they're a dime a dozen, but you've seen the story time and time again, and it's a divergent path. You have to either be certain about it, and if he goes to the second round, then I'm like, that's concerning that 32 teams were not convinced with what they saw.
It'll be super interesting to see what team ends up drafting him and how their staff is built. Like, will they have a strong Russian scouting contingency? Will they have a strong North American contingency? What does their development pipeline sort of look like? Because if they don't have those strong things, then they're literally flipping the coin and just saying, yep, we can't deny the talent at this pick. We don't like anybody else. We'll take our chances.
Hell of a player to take a chance on, though. Like, there's the other theory here is like, okay, if you're not completely sure on the kid, but your only other options are him or like someone who you want to be your third pair left D in the future, take Ryabkin, flip a coin. What's the worst that happens? You have a sick, talented dynamo for your AHL team for a few years before he pisses off to Russia again. Like, teams will want that. Like, take the risk and see if you can get that talent too. There is something to be said about that. And maybe you have a a Ryabkin whisper. Maybe the kid just grows out of a lot of this stuff. This could also be overblowing the attitude stuff too, right? Like if to me, it's more actually about the consistency game in and game out. That's the part where it's a little bit more of a red flag. And one begets the other. I get it, but still, yeah, probably worth a risk. Like if he gets out of the first round, I'd be really surprised. There's just too much talent there.
Yeah, if you only watch highlight videos, then you're like, this guy's a top 10 pick 100,000% of the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. We could go around in circles talking about this guy. If he figures it out, oh my God, maybe you have Evgeny Kuznetsov there.
Or maybe you have an Evgeny Kuznetsov there.
Or yeah, either way, that's the outcome. You pick the path to the player. Yeah. A very interesting prospect for me, too rich at 13. But early second round, maybe I'm definitely there on him.
All right, Ivan Ryabkin, floor Evgeny Kuznetsov, ceiling Evgeny Kuznetsov. You heard it here first. We're going to take another quick break here, and when we're back, the final segment on the Winged Wheel podcast. Back after this.
We're going to overtime.
Overtime is brought to you by our Patreon supporters, patreon.com/wingedwheel-podcast. If you want to support the show, the bonus episodes, the Discord, the giveaways, you get access to all that and more. You allow us to do things like support the Jamie Daniels Foundation through Winged Wheel Podcast nights with the Detroit Red Wings and the Grand Rapids Griffins. You allow us to continue our new studio upgrade. I promise you, this is not a finished product. There's more coming very, very soon here. You allow us to do some other big stuff that we're working on for this offseason, so stay tuned. So again, patreon.com/wingedwheelpodcast. Before we start, surprised you're not laying down. You're too awake now?
It's too far gone now.
Yeah, your body gets locked into positions. You're like, you have that disease where your bones just kind of freeze in place.
Yes.
Just repeat that every day.
Yep.
Every night I break my bones. And some questions for our patrons. Dustin Bufflin's Shaggin' Wagon, great name, says, what would it take to get Tuck and Byram from Buffalo? A buddy of mine seems to think they'll take a 2026 first, a 2025 second, MBN, Confer, and Willander. It's probably a do it for Detroit, yeah? A first and MBN are two premiums. A second is another high-end piece. Confer, you're offloading the contract. Willander is a decent prospect, but an expendable one. And you get Tuck and Byram.
Byram, obviously great, contract dependent, I would assume. What's 1 year of Alex Tuck worth?
Yeah, maybe you'd have to have an understanding that he re-signs.
Yeah, that would be maybe the only sticking point for me there.
And he's not like 35, he's 29, and is going to want a big deal. He's coming off a $4.75 million AAV. He knows he's due for a raise. So
switch Tuck for Peterka.
Yeah.
Do that all day.
I mean, but still Tuck. Anyways. Also, do you see a Larkin or Raymond 100-point season if the Red Wings add Marner? Someone's got to benefit from all the extra points he would bring. I think it's fully within the range of possibilities, especially for Lucas Raymond. Absolutely. You bring in another superstar level player like that, yeah, it's going to elevate other guys.
I could see it.
And remember, Dylan Larkin, though oft injured by the time February, March comes around, the guy is a uniquely talented finisher, too. You could be looking at Dylan Larkin 40 goals with a guy like Marner. Lastly, Jonathan Toews, any interest? It's the Patrick Kane situation redux, right? Like you look at him, you're like, there's no way he comes back from that much time off and whatever illnesses and or injuries he's had. But if he comes back and he practices well and his mixtape is sweet enough that his agent's sending in, I'm not going to be foolish enough to say never, because I kind of thought that with Patrick Kane that I doubted it, but it's unlikely, but it remains a possibility for Toews.
Yeah, a cheap deal, 1 year, play on the fourth line, sure. Like, again, it's a running joke, but it's true. Can't get much worse than what the Red Wings bottom six has been, so you might as well try some things.
Rasmussen and Petrie on a 2-0 breakaway says, looks like Tomas Tatar's NHL career is ending, signed 2 years in Switzerland. So at least for the time being, he is out of the NHL. What's your all-time favorite Tatar moment from his time in Detroit? Have had a hard time picking between the time he caused two Dallas players to collide or his goal celebration with the fan gloating in the foreground. That's the automatic one.
In New York?
Are you not entertained?
That was great. I mean, didn't he score in the final game at the Joe as well? But either way, the play in New York has got to be up there.
Tatar! Tomas Tatar!
That wasn't even in Detroit, but still, we're counting it.
Yeah. We were coming off of an era of 25, by the time it was done, 25 straight playoff appearances. The Datsuk Zetterberg era followed up the Yzerman, Shanahan, Fedorov era. We had a lot of high hopes for Tatar and Nyquist as a duo. And it, through no fault of their own, it didn't work out that way. It just wasn't the same team. But God, I love those two on the Red Wings. Tatar made a nice little career for himself. Jack's dad says regarding Bennett and Marner, one of you said sign them both. That's the right answer. That was Evan. Okay, let's say we do that at 14 mil for Marner and 10 mil for Bennett. What does that look like on the ice, lines, slotting, etc.? And how does that affect team finances?
Well, it affects the team finances in a pretty damn big way. But hey, if you want to offset the perceived softness of Mitch Marner, putting Sam Bennett at center with them kind of helps.
What's happening behind them in the lineup? You probably don't have enough players to put together because you can't pay anyone else.
A lot of ELCs.
Yeah. It's
Sandin Pellikka and Danielson and Mays are all on the team, not because they necessarily earned a spot, because they can't afford anybody more expensive.
You had to offload a ton of picks to offload any of the contracts that you needed to send away. Yeah, it's just not viable. It's funny to think about. Seider, I barely know her, says, do you think Steve ever asks players like Larkin if they think a potential player would be a good fit on the team? Or if not the players, do you think he consults with Todd? Just curious if free agency and trades are handled completely separate from the team on the ice.
I would bet Todd, the coach, gets a lot of input. I'd be surprised if the players got a lot of input there.
I think it depends on the GMing style, right? Like, I think, for example, the joke right now is Quinn Hughes is essentially consulted on every move Vancouver's making because they need to make sure that he's happy with it. It doesn't strike me as Steve Yzerman's style, but if you know a guy is very familiar with some of the players on your team or vice versa, then you are going to reach out to those players. I think it has happened. I can't remember who in the past for the Red Wings where they've reached out to like a Larkin or a Kopp or a Comfort to say, hey, you played with this guy here, or you know him from this college program or whatever. That's more often when it's, there's a link, unless it's a different situation like Hughes. But yeah, coaching, absolutely. Like you'd be remiss in not consulting your coach, especially if it's anyone of significance. Like if you just talk to your coach and he's like, we really just need a body for the third pair. And if you have to make that move at 2 a.m., you're probably not waking up the coach to confirm. But if it's a big move like a Gavrikov type, yeah, you have to be in lockstep. Jasper says, I'm sure this question's been asked quite a bit, but between MBN, ASP, and Danielson, who is looking like they had a better chance of hitting their ceiling after spending more time watching them after being drafted by the Wings? So between Sandin Pellikka, Brandsegg-Nygard, and Danielson, who do you think is most likely as of right now to hit their ceiling?
Well, if we go on the seasons they just had, probably Sandin Pellikka, because Danielson had a good season, but probably didn't exceed expectations in many ways. MBN probably season would be considered disappointing relative to what expectations were. Thankfully, he helped that in the playoffs
with the World Championships.
And even the little bit of time he got with Grand Rapids. So that eases. But yeah, like Sandin Pellikka before injury was like having a historic season. So you got to think he's at the top of that list right now.
And he benefits a little bit from more uncertainty, right? Like he just had a longer look. I think the opinion on Danielson is a touch low compared to what he deserves right now. Like I understand he didn't completely break out in Grand Rapids, but if you remember when we had Watson on the show, when we were in Grand Rapids, he said, like, in fairness to the kid, we're asking him to do a lot. Like he is playing a big role, playing hard minutes, killing penalties, playing against other teams like toughest opponents. Like, and this is during the period of time where he was supposed to kind of be allowed to flourish and maybe protect his time a little bit. So it's like a minute munching defenseman kind of thing. Sometimes that is a little bit masked. His performance is a little bit masked by what they're asking him to do on the ice. I'm not saying he is like a standout. He's going to go in and outproduce Larkin and Raymond and everything. But I think Danielson, people who are thinking it was a bad season, I don't think that's a fair assessment. I think he's still very well on track. Or if you think he's not, he can't be too far off of it.
Well, it's been the same discourse around Danielson going into his draft. The eye test is great. The 200-foot game is great. The production is still a question.
Yeah. So if you're like, okay, between Danielson and Kasper, Kasper's the one who ends up higher up on the depth chart at center Sure, maybe, but then if Danielson's a really strong 3C and could be an all situations type player, it's still a good result for Danielson. Okay, I think we are going to wrap this one up there. Actually, no, let's do this last one. Beer League Defenseman says, can we get some love for the PWHL Finals? Minnesota wins back-to-back titles, beating Ottawa in 4 straight overtime games, including 1 in triple OT. Hopefully you boys caught some of the games. They were fantastic. Congrats to the Frost. Back-to-back Walter Cup champions. A hell of a series.
No, yeah, it was a phenomenal series. The product the PWHL has been putting out is great. It's kind of cool to see. I know it's only 2 years, but like there's already kind of a villain in the PWHL, and they've won back-to-back, which I know people always, like, I've seen a lot of negative discourse around Minnesota winning back-to-back, and I get it, but that only makes it more fun for me to watch that league. Like, it's like the Florida Panthers in the NHL right now. They're the villain. Everybody wants to see them get dethroned. So watching Minnesota go back-to-back, knowing you got 2 new teams coming in and the other 5 teams are going to have a chip on their shoulders trying to dethrone, the queens of the league, like, I love it. It's phenomenal theater for a early upstart pro league.
Give me a team in Detroit, please.
Also, I'm just going to go with my theory. Minnesota won back-to-back because they have some of the sickest jerseys in professional hockey.
They are sick.
They won on the power of the 2-tone purple.
Add more purple, folks. Although
Utah, this is why you're never going to succeed. You had the opportunity and you squandered it.
The Victoire jerseys, the Montreal, they're
nasty.
So clean. Reminds me of the Spitz did like a off-white, like they did cream, I think third jersey. Actually, primaries as well for a bit there.
Yeah.
I love those.
And now they decided to, I don't know why Windsor, sorry, complete sidetrack, but I have to, why is Windsor still wearing like 2008 Reebok Edge piping apocalypse jerseys? Like, they got to be the only team left still wearing anything that resembles that.
I don't know. Especially, I love their old school Spitfires logo. And
Yes.
the vertical oval badge. I don't know how to describe that.
Yeah.
With the trail and the plane.
Yes.
The cartoony plane just doesn't do it for me.
No, Windsor, like the red, white, and blue color scheme with that logo has the possibility to have such elite jerseys, and they piss it away.
They got to switch back at some point, man. All right, folks, we're going to wrap up this episode of the Winged Wheel Podcast. Thank you all so very much for tuning in. Thank you to the sponsors of the show, and thank you to all of our Patreon supporters. We could not do this show without you. Patreon.com/Winged Wheel Podcast if you want to support the show. And if you want to support us, but Patreon's not for you, you can also help us out by clicking subscribe or tapping subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever that is. Leave a rating, whether it's a thumbs up, a star rating, a review, tell a friend about the show. All of that sincerely helps a lot. To all of our name level supporters, we could not do the show without you. Arjun Shankar, Yves Bartels on behalf of the Sarah Grand Foundation, Jennifer Morris, Aikfer, THL Champ, Samuel Soderholm, Icon, Glenn Brabham, Sea Lion, Matthew M. Rice, Adam Rose, Adam Suiza, Admiral Matt S. at the Cheesebag Navy, Alex Toger, Anna Sleeman, Asher Killian, Beer League Legend, Best James Bond, Bingo Bango, Brad's Only Toes Manager, Carl Britannia Analuski, CB55, Citizen High Five, Clip Clop Nene, Connor Scovey, Craig Kibble, Denny's Gamer Girl, Derek Enstam, DJ Denton, Eric Hill. Did you just take a picture?
No, I was making the joke there.
Gift Blood Fight Prover, Grand Rapids Girly, Griffin God Creatives, Hockeytown Love, Hockeytown Matt, Hassam Al-Qassam, Jay Gollum, Jacob Turner, Jeff Pridemore, John Ingalls, Jonathan Miller, Kaylin Wood, Mark Hernandez, Marty, Matt McKay, Mr. Kuzi. Now I have to learn how to click on a Macintosh, Podgy713, RA, Richard Perkins, Roy Donk, Ryan Britt, Sam Bankson, Slim Smitty Cards, Stephen Ortlieb, That's What I Appreciates About You, Tiger McDougal, Wallman's Elite Dancing D, Wings Fan in Chicago, Iserplan Stan, Aaron Hudson, General Andy Bohan of the Cheesebag Army, AA Ron, All Motor No Hands, and I'm Kevin, and Stanislavski, Axolotl, Sardine Pelican, Bellingham Massaballs, Bex, Bussin' It Down Like Evan on a Tuesday Night, C.E. Hayes, Chris Felinsky, Clay Adams, Commander Ben Barron of the Cheesebag Space Force, Connor Layton, Corey Prida, Darren Fick, Drop the Puck, Dylan Larkin, Trade Sacrifice, Eric Nance, Evan Beckner, Evans, Brown, Pomeranian, Frank Stanley, Gene Sullivan, Grepsky, Griffey Boy, James Pridemore, Johnny Page, Jeremiah Dobo, Jim, JM Rhapsody, Josh Yelton, Kevin McCracken, Quaz, Linda Hull, Lonnie Zone, Lucas Raymond, Marco Kasper, the Task Manager, Matt Keeler, Mitch Minier, Ophelia, As Good As It Gets, Rosie Posey, Roy Mudbutt, Ryan's Communal Hole, Steven, That Other Guy, The Hodag, The Hat 123, Trent Thorough, Wings Fan in St. Louis, Scott, and your second favorite patron. Thank you all so very much. Off to go get demonetized, no doubt.
Thanks for tuning in to the Winged Wheel Podcast. Be sure to visit wingedwheelpodcast.com, where you'll find links to subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. You'll also find ways to support the show, like Patreon, official podcast merchandise, and more. And don't forget to follow us on X at Winged Wheel Pod, at Ryan Hanna, WWP, at Brad Crisco, and at Hockeytown Evan, as well as Winged Wheel Podcast on Instagram.